let's listen to Innamorato by the 4 Baritones. Tenor, I hardly know her.
Deserto triste sempre solita, cercando appoggio di tua man d'amor, faccia coperto come lacrime, non può opporsi del dolore, non cancella mio cuore, ma resta qui con me, non posso vivere lontan di te, ritorna a me, aspetterò.
Oh my gosh. This is amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the lyrics, first of all, Enamorata means young lover, like woman, feminine, young lover. May I write sweet lullabies, be the sun that sets your heart on fire? May I sing only songs of love to guide you through deep waters? When the storm cries, I will always be your Inamorata. Well, I guess in this case, love me forever, Enamorata, always together. So maybe it's not necessarily gendered. But yeah, so Ernst comes in at the beginning. Heavy hitter. But what's lovely is that these guys are all classically trained in a way that, as we talk about all the time, classical training is meant to create an amplified acoustic without amplification. Mind you, these guys are in a giant hall where, you know, the microphone is almost necessary. It doesn't matter who you are, right? But what it also means is that for singers who are trained to work on amplification, they have the ability to kind of pull back and to use colors that they don't normally get to play with. And that's in the musical theater sense, in the recording sense. You know, you hear a different side of operatic singers, which is so exciting. And in this case, Ernst is he's milking that opportunity to use as much sweet, supple, quiet timbre, which matches the emotions of the song incredibly well. Let's listen. It's just like a whisper.
Cercando appoggio di tua man d'amor, faccia coperto come lacrime, non può opporsi del dolore, non cancella mio cuore, ma resta qui con me, non posso vivere lontan di te, ritorna a me, aspetterò.
But then, mind you, when I said Ernst comes in swinging, I mean Henk actually comes in with the hammer voice. You know, he never loses that like really rich lowered laryngeal quality in his sound. I mean, richness is almost an understatement when it comes to his singing. They're brutal. I mean, what's really cool, Horacle, about that, the tiny mics, is that usually opera singers, if you're like right next to them, you wouldn't know that the sound is doing what it's doing if you were, from the perspective of someone listening out in the house. Like the sound goes, right? The sound travels based on resonance, and it changes as space changes. But with these small mics, yeah, totally unforgiving, which is a really nice way of watching, sometimes you'll think about opera singers, or if you're a very operatic person, if you pay attention to a lot of opera singers, their careers, and go see them a lot, you'll know that there are some singers who probably really wouldn't sound good with a microphone. But when you see guys like this being really intelligent, especially with huge, like round, rich voices like theirs, being really refined, then they're using the mics properly. Yes, some of the resonance would get lost, but in this case, they're singing incredibly smart. And, Henk obviously has a lot of musical theater experience where microphones are more typically used. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Let's keep going. Love me forever. Always together. Yes, so they all have musical theater experience. Check out the lyrics. Nice. Good job, Maestro. Why are you wearing sunglasses inside? He's good, though. He's very clear with his ictus, which is nice. So this is Seth. All right. So this was Seth. He's the youngest. Seth is the youngest of the four. Yeah, that makes sense. He has the most youthful voice as well. He has the most lyric voice. As you may know, guys, if you're part of the Patreon, you have access to my little listening guide. I talk about the differentiation between lyric sounds and dramatic sounds, which isn't a difference between, it's not like lyric has to do with the actual words, like you would think of the word lyrics, and dramatic doesn't have to do with like the amount of drama you're bringing to it. They're literally two sound qualities that are defined within classical singing as lyric being more based in resonance, more reliant on the acoustic of the sound, whereas dramatic has more reliance on the actual power of and the thrust of the sound. The dramatic sound has more in it, and a lyric sound has more in it, right? They're all, for the most part, quite in the middle, like a very flexible sounds, all of these singers. But Seth particularly has a much more lyric sound. That comes in the form of that sweetness, that forwardness, that more colored sound. It's a little less what you would think of as typically like baritonal, right? Where we've heard so far from Henk and Ernst, but it's still a very sweet sound. I mean, in the context, you have four baritones. There's no tenor to add that, sweetness, and so Seth does a really good job at creating that acoustic in the mix, and it has a much, it's a much more lyrical, sweet sound. I want to notice, now that we can see all their faces, look at how high all of their cheekbones are. It's just such a cool thing looking at the anatomy of four giant Dutch baritones and looking at the similarities. They all have very like big rib cages. They all have very, nice jaw lines, very relaxed jaw lines, keeping everything here nice. Lawsuit incoming? Who's suing me? But yeah. Marco on the right is the eldest. He started in 1963. Oh my gosh. Well, he's singing now, so let's hear him sing. But anyway, I just wanted to draw attention. Look at the anatomy going on with these guys. Just the type of body, the type of faces they all have. Really high cheekbones, very broad faces. That all has something to do with that massive that massive acoustic panel that they can resonate out of, right? Doesn't matter if you sing dramatically, you sing more lyrically. No one's purely one way or the other for the most part, but they all have this wonderful, wonderful resonant space to work with. Their faces, essentially. Rib cages, isn't that the suits they wear? Yeah, so I mean, if you're wearing tails, that jacket does ebb a little bit, but you can still see underneath there's this massive energy. There's this massive space that they can breathe into. That's the important thing. Anyway, all right, time to listen to Marco. Marco, who's the eldest of the four, going from youngest to eldest. Oh, lovely. They're so together. I love it. You think Henk has the biggest mouth hole? That's probably true. We can get a better look at it in a second. I wasn't looking at that. So Marco, the last singer, I really appreciate his singing. I'm gonna go back and we can talk about a couple of interesting things going on with his singing. Let me find a good place. So before we listen to this clip again, when singers age, right, the voice becomes more brittle, almost more inflexible. I know that's a weird way of putting it, double negative, but the voice becomes more inflexible. Now, typically, if aging tenors risk this the most out of all voices, but that brittleness kind of puts you into a box with your voice. You're either going to start to lose timbre and lose your voice if you really don't have any technique. And then it's also common for the voice to just kind of be stuck in one dynamic. So you're either going to be, as the voice ages, you're going to be just singing loud, 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 loud. And if you try to sing soft, the voice will, crack. What's lovely in the way that Marco sings is that he has so much dynamic range. He has a little bit of that large voiced wobble that creeps its way in as the singer grows more mature, right? But that wobble is not limiting him to any specific dynamic. He's still singing with incredible fortes, medium mezzo fortes, and then pulling the sound back into pianos at the end of each phrase is really absolutely lovely. Ernst Daniels 62, Henk's 59 in this concert. Marco is 77 in this concert. He's the veteran here. Yeah, you can hear the age in the voice. There's a little bit of a wobble, but he's never losing the principle of singing, which is relying on resonance in a way that the vibration never stops. The resonance in his vibrato is always very consistent. And at the end of each, but within that vibration, you can play around with dynamics and increase the volume and reduce the volume based on other factors. But as long as that vibration stays consistent, the voice will do the things you want it to do. You feel that even vibrato. The wobble is vibrato. The wobble is a slow vibrato. The vibrato will slow down as the voice ages, but if the technique is good as it is in this case, you will never lose dynamic range, right? If you have to rely on tension in the throat to sing, which he does not, if you have to rely on that throat tension, you lose dynamic range, as in you'll only be able to sing one specific volume, and as the voice grows older and more inflexible, that wobble will be much more difficult. I mean, that's a huge generalization. Not everyone gets a wobble as they age. However, it's a common thing with older singers. But with good technique, it shouldn't affect the ability to continue to perform. It's a little bit of wobble. I mean, 77. It's a little slower, but it's beautiful. There's not a second where it seems like he's working. There's not a second where it seems like he's not really believing all of the words he's saying. If I'm correct, the lyrics of his verse are, "May I be the breeze that blows through your paradise," right? Or yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, and there's no moment where it doesn't seem like that's what he's truly believing in the moment. With that, I mean, that's also the symptom of a career that started, as Jaap said, in what did you say, in 1960? Where is it? 63. Yeah, crazy. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's really fantastic. Prop. This is all reactions today. Who has the biggest mouth hole? Oh, that's awesome. Singing along. Yeah, thank you. All right, so that's a closed vowel, and obviously we see the biggest mouth. I would say between I think it's Marco. Marco's second to the left. Wait, no, Marco's on the right, and Seth. Henk and Seth have the biggest closed O, right? If they're outdoors, that makes sense as to why Maestro has sunglasses. It probably was like an all-day thing. High notes, high notes, high notes, high notes. All right. We'll play that whole thing out, but here's our mouth hole. Here's our mouth hole shot. Do not screenshot this and Photoshop anything onto this photo, please. Ernst, Seth, Henk, Marco. I'd say the runnings. I mean, Henk is definitely in a more open position, I will say. But Ernst is just such a big guy. Like, such a big guy. I think he's got the biggest mouthful of all of them. But one thing that's very indicative of that, like what that really does mean in reality, is that he's able to create more of an acoustic, right? Yeah, it's hard to tell with the cheek to mouth ratio. Yeah, it's like what's the physically bigger than what's the proportionally biggest mouth. But I mean, jokes aside, the importance of understanding that the way that Ernst sings is more relying on the acoustic of the space he creates. That like soft, like whispery, like very like easy, pulling it back, calm sound, right? He doesn't have to create any resonance. The mic is right here, right? He doesn't have to create an immense amount of sound. He just has to color the voice in a way that's lovely and is in the mood of the song and the lyrics. He doesn't have to compete with an orchestra. And so with a big acoustic space, then you can also use that acoustic space instead of any thrust or power coming from below, right? How do you calculate the area of the mouth? Yeah, the Pythagoras formula. Right, Spralos? Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, he's awesome. Let's hear this cadence. Let's go back a little bit.
Consola, viel consolar, mio
Real some killer voices. Really stunning. Awesome. Awesome. Really fantastic. Thank you, Yop, for that. That was really nice.